The wedge-shaped symbols stared back at me from the clay tablet, untouched for over 4,000 years. It was a Tuesday morning in the basement archives of the Oriental Institute when everything we thought we knew about ancient Mesopotamia began to unravel. The tablet, labeled as inventory record for decades, had been scanned into our new neural translation system just hours earlier. Now the preliminary results flashed on my screen. Not a simple accounting of grain or livestock, but something that defied conventional archaeological understanding. "Dr. Reed, you need to see this," I called out, my voice echoing through the fluorescent-lit basement. Dr. Rachel Reed, head of computational linguistics at the Institute, appeared at my shoulder, coffee mug in hand. Her eyes narrowed as she scanned the translation on my screen. "Zachary, run it again," she said quietly, "and triple-check the calibration parameters." I nodded, fingers already flying across the keyboard. Our AI translation system, the result of 5 years of development and training on thousands of previously translated cuneiform texts, had just produced a passage that, if accurate, would force us to rewrite history books. The system hummed, neural networks processing the intricate patterns of wedge-shaped impressions on the digital scan. 3 minutes later, the translation reappeared, unchanged. When the sky vessels descended from above, bearing the watchers from the world beyond the heavens, the people brought offerings. 7 days they remained, imparting knowledge of the stars' paths and the metals that speak across great distances. Dr. Reed set down her coffee mug with deliberate care. "Well," she said finally, "it appears we have a problem. Neither of us could have imagined that within months, this single translation would unleash a scientific revolution that would challenge our most fundamental understanding of human history, technological development, and perhaps even our place in the cosmos. The problem, as we would soon discover, wasn't that our AI was malfunctioning. The problem was that it was working far better than anyone had anticipated. 6 years earlier, the notion of using artificial intelligence to translate ancient Sumerian tablets seemed ambitious but straightforward. The initial project, spearheaded by Dr. Zachary Jenkins and funded by a modest grant from the National Science Foundation, aimed to create a neural network that could speed up the painfully slow process of cuneiform translation. Cuneiform, the earliest known writing system, had been a persistent challenge for archaeologists and linguists since its rediscovery in the 19th century. Developed around 3400 BCE in what is now Iraq, cuneiform consists of wedge-shaped marks pressed into clay tablets using a reed stylus. The Sumerian language itself, an isolate with no known linguistic relatives, only compounded the difficulty. Traditional translation of a single tablet could take weeks or months, explained Dr. Jenkins at our first project meeting in 2017. And with over 500,000 known cuneiform tablets scattered across museums worldwide, most of them still untranslated, we're sitting on a treasure trove of human knowledge that might take centuries to process manually. The initial prototype was modest, a convolutional neural network trained on about 5,000 previously translated administrative tablets, mostly inventories, receipts, and contracts. Early results were promising but limited. The AI could recognize basic patterns and vocabulary related to counting livestock, measuring grain, and recording simple transactions. The breakthrough came when Dr. Rachel Reed joined the project in 2019, bringing her expertise in computational linguistics and deep learning architectures. Her innovation was deceptively simple. Instead of training the AI solely on finished translations, she proposed feeding it the actual process expert translators used. Human translators don't just map symbols to words, Dr. Reed explained during her first presentation to the team. They consider context, historical knowledge, linguistic drift, and cultural references. They understand that a symbol's meaning might have evolved over the centuries. Under Dr. Reed's direction, we fitted expert translators with eye-tracking devices and recorded their vocalized thought processes as they worked through tablets. This metadata, the hesitations, the considerations of alternative meanings, the references to other texts, became part of our training dataset. The results were transformative. By late 2021, our system, now named ENKI after the Sumerian god of wisdom, could translate standard administrative tablets with 89% accuracy, a remarkable achievement that attracted attention throughout the archaeological world. But it was the system's next evolution that would change everything. What if we apply the same deep learning architecture to the entire corpus of Sumerian literature? Dr. Reed proposed during a late-night session in December 2021. Not just the inventories and receipts, but the myths, the epics, the religious texts, the medical treatises, everything we've translated so far. The project expanded dramatically. We secured additional funding from private tech philanthropists and began collecting digital scans of tablets from museums worldwide. The British Museum, the Louvre, the Vorderasiatisches Museum in Berlin, and dozens of others contributed their collections. By June 2022, our dataset had grown to include over 100,000 tablets spanning nearly 3,000 years of Mesopotamian civilization. ENKI 2.0 went beyond simple pattern recognition. It incorporated contextual understanding, could detect nuances in handwriting that might indicate different scribes, and could even suggest probabilities for missing or damaged portions of text based on linguistic patterns and cultural context. When we unveiled the system at the International Assyriology Conference in Chicago in early 2023, the response was mixed. Traditionalists worried about machine translation replacing the nuanced work of human scholars. Others saw the potential for accelerating research. None of us anticipated what would happen when we turned ENKI loose on the vast backlog of untranslated tablets. It started with Tablet K129. Dr. Jenkins recalled later in a BBC documentary, a fragmentary text from Nippur, dated around 2100 BCE. Nothing particularly special about it, just one of thousands sitting in storage at the University of Pennsylvania Museum for decades. K129 had been partially translated in the 1950s and categorized as a standard administrative text, something about temple offerings. When ENKI processed it, however, the translation it produced contained references to vessels that moved across the sky faster than birds, and visitors who came from beyond the heavens, bearing gifts of knowledge. Our first reaction was skepticism. We assumed ENKI had malfunctioned or that its training data had somehow been contaminated. Dr. Reed spent 3 days reviewing the algorithm and checking for errors. The system was functioning exactly as designed, she concluded. In fact, it was functioning better than we expected. It was picking up on contextual clues and linguistic patterns that human translators had missed or misinterpreted. To verify ENKI's translation, we sent the tablet to 3 expert Sumerologists without telling them about the AI's results. 2 concluded it was indeed an administrative text about temple offerings. The third, Dr. Miriam Katz from Yale University, noted some unusual phraseology, but still classified it as primarily administrative in nature. When we showed all 3 experts the full translation produced by ENKI and walked them through the AI's analytical process, showing how it had connected certain symbols to similar contexts in mythological texts rather than administrative ones, the reaction was immediate. "I need to see this tablet again," Dr. Katz demanded, her voice tense with excitement or concern. It was hard to tell which. Within weeks, Dr. Katz confirmed that ENKI's translation revealed layers of meaning that had been overlooked. The tablet used standard administrative terminology, but embedded within it was a distinct narrative using metaphorical language and specialized vocabulary found primarily in religious and astronomical texts. This discovery alone would have been noteworthy, an interesting example of how scribes might have hidden certain types of information within seemingly mundane records. But it was just the beginning. As we processed more tablets, a pattern emerged. Scattered throughout the vast corpus of Mesopotamian writing were hundreds of texts that, when translated by ENKI, revealed consistent references to advanced knowledge that shouldn't have been possible in the 3rd millennium BCE. The first category of anomalous translations related to astronomy. Traditional scholarship recognized that Mesopotamians were skilled observers of celestial phenomena, but ENKI's translations suggested their knowledge went far beyond naked-eye observation. The pathway of Nibiru crosses the sky in 3,600 measures, returning to the same place. Read 1 tablet from Uruk, dated approximately 2700 BCE. This orbital period, which some scholars interpreted as 3,600 years, matched no known planet in our solar system. Yet other tablets referenced this same celestial body and its lengthy orbit with mathematical precision. Even more startling were tablets that appeared to describe planets beyond Saturn. planets not visible to the naked eye and supposedly unknown until the modern era. Beyond the giant with the rings lies another giant of blue-green, and beyond it a smaller giant of blue, and yet beyond lies the cold one who walks its path alone. Read a translation from a Neo-Assyrian tablet dated to approximately 700 BCE. Uranus, discovered in 1781, is indeed blue-green. Neptune, discovered in 1846, appears blue through telescopes. And Pluto, the cold one walking alone, wasn't discovered until 1930. The Sumerians simply couldn't have known this, insisted Dr. Harold Fitzpatrick, professor of ancient astronomy at Cambridge University, when first presented with these translations. There must be a mistake in the AI's interpretation. But as more tablets yielded similar information, the evidence became harder to dismiss. The descriptions were too specific, too accurate, and too consistent across texts separated by centuries and discovered at different archaeological sites. The astronomical anomalies were just the beginning. ENKI's translations also revealed sophisticated medical knowledge embedded in texts previously thought to be primarily magical or religious in nature. One tablet from Nippur, dated to approximately 2200 BCE, contained what appeared to be a description of blood circulation and the function of the heart, knowledge not formally discovered in Western medicine until William Harvey's work in 1628 CE. The life water moves in rivers through the body, always returning to the central chamber that beats, pushed through vessels that reach to all parts. Read the translation. When the flow is blocked, illness follows. When it stops, death comes. Another tablet described what modern readers would recognize as germ theory. The smallest enemies, too small for eyes to see, enter the body and multiply, bringing sickness. Water passed through fire, boiled harbors fewer such enemies. Perhaps most confounding were the tablets that described electrical phenomena and what appeared to be rudimentary batteries. When copper and zinc are placed together in a vessel of sour liquid, with a connecting metal, they create the fire that is not fire electricity. Read one tablet from Tel Brak, dated to approximately 1800 BCE. This description closely matched the Baghdad battery, a controversial archaeological find consisting of a clay jar containing a copper cylinder and iron rod, discovered in Iraq and dated to the Parthian period, approximately 250 BCE to 224 CE. While many archaeologists had dismissed the object as a storage vessel, ENKI's translation suggested that knowledge of electrical generation might have existed far earlier than previously thought. The consistent pattern across these anomalous translations suggested three possibilities, all of them revolutionary. 1. Sumerian civilization had independently developed advanced scientific knowledge that was subsequently lost, challenging our understanding of the linear progression of human knowledge. 2. The translations were revealing metaphorical or religious language that coincidentally resembled modern scientific concepts, but wasn't actually describing the same phenomena. 3. The Sumerians had somehow acquired advanced knowledge from an outside source, a possibility that most academics were reluctant to even consider. Dr. Reed leaned toward the first explanation. History isn't as linear as we like to think, she argued during a panel discussion at Harvard in late 2023. Knowledge can be gained and lost. The Library of Alexandria burned. The Byzantine Empire collapsed. Why couldn't the Sumerians have developed sophisticated understanding that was later forgotten as their civilization declined? Dr. Jenkins was more cautious. We need to be careful not to impose modern interpretations on ancient texts, he warned. What looks like a description of electricity to us might have had an entirely different meaning in its original context. But as ENKI processed more tablets, a third category of anomalous translations emerged, ones that seemed to directly address the source of this advanced knowledge. And these were the translations that would prove most controversial of all. On February 15, 2024, Dr. Jenkins received an urgent call from the British Museum. A collection of 12 tablets, discovered during excavations at Eridu in the 1940s but never fully translated, had been processed through ENKI. The museum's curator of Mesopotamian collections, Dr. Thomas Harrington, was requesting an immediate consultation. "I'm sending you the preliminary translations now," Dr. Harrington said, his voice tight with controlled excitement. These tablets appear to be part of a coherent narrative. If Enki's translation is accurate, well, you'll see for yourself. The tablets, collectively dated to approximately 3100 BCE, making them some of the earliest written accounts in human history, told a story that defied conventional historical understanding. According to Enki's translation, they described the arrival of beings from another world who brought knowledge to early human civilization. They descended from the sky in vessels of metal that roared like thunder and shone like the sun, read the first tablet. The Anunnaki, often translated as princely offspring or offspring of An, the sky god, came from the world that the shepherds see in the night sky, the red one, potentially Mars that wanders among the fixed stars. The tablets went on to describe how these beings established outposts in Mesopotamia, teaching humans various technologies including writing, agriculture, mathematics, astronomy, and metallurgy. They shaped us in their image, improving what they found, read a particularly controversial passage from the sixth tablet. They mixed their essence with ours to create workers and servants, but in doing so, they gave us the seed of understanding. This narrative eerily echoed elements found in much later Sumerian myths about the Anunnaki, often described as a group of deities related to the sky god Anu, who were said to have created humans as servants. But these tablets presented the account not as mythology but as historical record. The council must determine if this knowledge is acceptable for your kind, continued the seventh tablet. Some among the Anunnaki believe you should remain as servants only. Others see the spark of potential and wish to raise you higher. Most provocative were the tablet's descriptions of the Anunnaki's home world, a planet called Nibiru that supposedly followed a highly elliptical orbit around our sun, bringing it into the inner solar system only once every several thousand years. They came from Nibiru when it approached the sun, for the journey is shortest then, read the ninth tablet. When they return, those chosen will go with them to learn the greater knowledge. When news of these translations leaked to the press in March 2024, the academic community's response was swift and polarized. Mainstream archaeologists and historians denounced them as misinterpretations, while a smaller group argued that we should at least consider the possibility that these texts represented actual historical accounts, however embellished. This is precisely why AI should not be trusted with translation work, declared Dr. Eleanor Simmons, president of the International Association of Assyriology, in a scathing editorial. It's creating patterns where none exist, connecting disparate texts into a coherent but fictional narrative. Others were more measured in their response. We cannot simply dismiss these translations because they challenge our preconceptions, argued Dr. Michael Chun, professor of archaeological computing at Stanford. If an AI system with no prior exposure to modern, ancient astronaut theories independently produces translations that suggest such a narrative, we should at least investigate why. The controversy intensified when Enki processed a collection of tablets from Tel Brak that appeared to describe a conflict among the Anunnaki visitors, resulting in some of them departing Earth while others remained. The rebellion of Enlil against Enki's plan divided them, read one tablet. Those who believed humans should remain servants only were cast out or departed. Those who saw humans as their inheritors remained to guide and teach, though they knew the waters would rise to cleanse the earth. This apparent reference to a flood narrative, combined with the description of factions among the supposed visitors, provided an unexpected link to later biblical and Mesopotamian flood stories. As academics debated the translation's validity, Dr. Reed and Dr. Jenkins took an unprecedented step. They made Enki's source code and training data public, inviting scrutiny from computational linguists worldwide. We have nothing to hide, Dr. Reed announced at a press conference. If there are flaws in our methodology or biases in our training data, we want them identified. Science advances through transparency and peer review. For 3 months, experts in machine learning, computational linguistics, and Assyriology examined Enki's architecture and training. Their conclusion, published in the journal Nature Computational Science in July 2024, was surprising. The system was methodologically sound, with no evident biases that would produce the anomalous translations. While we cannot definitively state that Enki's translations are correct, the review committee wrote, we can confirm that they are the product of consistent application of linguistic patterns found within the training corpus. The system is doing exactly what it was designed to do: identify patterns in Sumerian texts based on known translations and extend those patterns to new texts. This validation shifted the debate from the reliability of the AI to the interpretation of the translations themselves. In September 2024, Dr. Jenkins proposed what he called the archaeological prediction test. If these translations are accurate, he reasoned, then they should contain information that can lead us to new archaeological discoveries. Information that wasn't previously known to either human scholars or the AI system. He identified several tablets that contained what appeared to be geographical descriptions of locations where the Anunnaki had supposedly established facilities or buried knowledge for safekeeping. One day when the children of the children's children are ready, they may open the chamber beneath the lion's paw at the place where the two rivers meet in the shadow of the mountain that stands alone. Read one particularly specific passage. A team of archaeologists, led by Dr. Sofia Martinez from the University of Chicago, identified a promising location based on this description: a previously unexplored mound near the confluence of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, in the shadow of an isolated geological formation locally known as the Sentinel. Using ground-penetrating radar and electromagnetic surveys, the team detected an anomaly approximately 20 meters beneath the surface, a large chamber that didn't appear to be a natural formation. After securing permissions from the Iraqi government, excavation began in November 2024. 3 weeks into the dig, the team uncovered something remarkable. A sealed chamber lined with bitumen, containing hundreds of pristinely preserved tablets, several small metal objects of unknown purpose, and most surprisingly, a collection of crystal cylinders with spiraling metallic threads embedded within them. Initial analysis dated the chamber to approximately 2500 BCE, but the contents appeared to incorporate materials and construction techniques that seemed out of place for that time period. The metal alloys in these objects include trace elements that don't match any known ancient metallurgical techniques, reported Dr. Hiroshi Takahashi, a materials scientist who analyzed the findings. And the crystal cylinders, they're silicon dioxide, essentially quartz, but the purity and structure suggest a manufacturing process far beyond what we believed possible in the ancient world. Most astonishing was a large tablet found at the center of the chamber. When scanned and processed through ENKI, it produced a translation that sent shockwaves through the scientific community. This is the record of the seeding of knowledge, preserved for those who will one day reach toward the stars again. We, the remaining watchers, have agreed that your kind must progress at its own pace, but when you discover this chamber, it will signal that you are ready for the next phase of understanding. The objects contained herein are keys to knowledge beyond your present comprehension. They are seeds that, properly understood, will grow into greater wisdom. The tablet continued with what appeared to be technical information, mathematical formulas, astronomical calculations, and what some experts interpreted as basic principles of quantum mechanics and field theory. Either this is the most elaborate hoax in archaeological history, Dr. Martinez told reporters at a press conference in January 2025, or we are facing evidence that forces us to reconsider fundamental aspects of human history. The second prediction test came from a different set of tablets that described a place of healing waters beneath the mountains where the sun rises, with instructions for finding specific mineral combinations that supposedly had medicinal properties. An expedition to the Zagros Mountains in western Iran, led by Dr. James Wilson from the University of Edinburgh, identified a series of natural springs with unusual mineral content. Chemical analysis revealed that the water contained a rare combination of trace elements that, when combined in the proportions described in the tablets, demonstrated significant antibiotic properties against multiple bacterial strains, including some resistant to modern antibiotics. These springs contain a naturally occurring compound that we're now calling Sumerian 1, explained Dr. Wilson. It's structurally unlike any antibiotic we've developed, and preliminary tests show it's effective against several multi-drug-resistant pathogens. Pharmaceutical companies immediately began investigating this compound, with early clinical trials showing promising results. If approved, Sumerian 1 would represent the first major antibiotic discovery in decades, derived from information in 4,000-year-old clay tablets. As these prediction tests yielded tangible results, the scientific community's skepticism began to soften, replaced by a cautious openness to reconsidering historical narratives that had long been dismissed as myths or misinterpretations. We're not saying that ancient astronauts definitely visited Earth and gave technology to Sumerians, clarified Dr. Reed in a TED Talk that went viral in March 2025. We're saying that these ancient texts contain information that seems impossible for their writers to have known, information that's proving scientifically valid today. That demands explanation. The explanation, as it turned out, would come from an unexpected direction. In April 2025, Dr. Zachary Jenkins received a message from Dr. Rebecca Richards, a geneticist at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology. She had been following the Sumerian translation controversy with interest and had noticed something in the tablet's descriptions of how the Anunnaki supposedly mixed their essence with early humans. Several of the translated passages describe specific procedures that sound remarkably like genetic engineering. Dr. Richards wrote, "Given recent advances in paleogenomics, I wonder if we might find evidence of these alleged interventions in the human genome itself." Dr. Jenkins was skeptical but intrigued. He arranged for ENKI to specifically analyze tablets with content related to human creation or modification, with Dr. Richards consulting on the translations. The results were provocative. Several tablets contained what appeared to be detailed descriptions of genetic manipulation, not in modern scientific terminology, but in analogical language that was nevertheless recognizable to geneticists. They took the essence of life, possibly DNA, from their own bodies and combined it with the essence of the earth beings, early hominids, read one tablet. They removed some parts and added others, working with the smallest threads of life that cannot be seen but pass from parent to child. Another tablet described what seemed to be artificial insemination or in vitro fertilization. The seed of the Anunnaki male was placed in vessels along with the life waters of their kind. Into this, they placed the egg from the earth female, and when it grew strong, they returned it to the earth female's body to develop. Dr. Richards proposed an audacious research project, comparing modern human DNA with our closest evolutionary relatives to identify genetic sequences that might show signs of deliberate manipulation rather than natural evolution. "We're not looking for alien DNA," she clarified. "We're looking for patterns in our genome that would be unlikely to occur through natural selection or random mutation, patterns that might suggest intentional design." The project drew together geneticists, evolutionary biologists, and computational biologists from institutions worldwide. Using advanced machine learning algorithms, ironically similar in architecture to ENKI itself, they began analyzing the human genome for anomalous patterns. In December 2025, the team published their preliminary findings in the journal Cell. They had identified 223 gene sequences in the human genome that showed what they called statistical signatures of potential engineering, patterns that were mathematically unlikely to have occurred through known evolutionary processes. These sequences appear primarily in genes related to brain development, immune function, and longevity, the paper reported. The statistical unlikelihood of these specific patterns emerging naturally does not prove intervention, but it presents a compelling case for further investigation. Most striking was the dating of these genetic anomalies. Using molecular clock techniques, the team estimated that most of these unusual sequences appeared in the human genome between 200,000 and 50,000 years ago, coinciding with the emergence of anatomically modern humans and the subsequent explosion of technological and cultural development that eventually led to civilization. This timeline aligned disturbingly well with the Sumerian accounts of the Anunnaki arriving and improving early humans. The genetic findings ignited yet another firestorm of controversy. Traditional evolutionary biologists proposed alternative explanations, suggesting that the anomalous sequences might result from viral insertions, unique selective pressures, or simply limitations in our understanding of evolutionary processes. Just because we can't immediately explain how these sequences evolved naturally doesn't mean they didn't, argued Dr. Thomas Reynolds, an evolutionary biologist at Oxford University. The history of science is full of apparent anomalies that were later explained through natural processes. Others were less dismissive. We should consider all possibilities, including those that make us uncomfortable, suggested Dr. Maria Gonzalez, director of the Institute for Advanced Genomic Studies. If we're seeing patterns in the human genome that are statistically unlikely to have occurred naturally, we have a scientific obligation to investigate why. The debate took an unexpected turn when Dr. Richard's team discovered something even more startling. Some of the anomalous genetic sequences contained mathematical patterns embedded within them, patterns that appeared non-random and potentially symbolic. It's as if someone signed their work, Dr. Richards explained during a presentation at the World Science Forum in Singapore. These patterns have no functional purpose in the genes themselves, but they follow mathematical rules. Specifically, they encode prime number sequences and geometric ratios like pi and phi. This discovery shifted the conversation from whether the human genome contained engineered elements to who might have engineered them and why they would have embedded mathematical signatures in our DNA. As researchers delved deeper into these genetic mysteries, ENKI continued processing thousands more tablets, revealing a comprehensive narrative that stretched across millennia of Sumerian, Akkadian, Babylonian, and Assyrian texts. According to these translations, the Anunnaki had come to Earth seeking resources, particularly gold, which they needed for unknown purposes on their home world. They came first for the metal that does not tarnish gold. Read one tablet from UR, dated to approximately 2400 BCE. They taught us to extract it from the earth and rivers, to refine it and shape it. Some they took with them when Nibiru returned to the far reaches. Some they used here to build devices of power. The tablets described an initial period when the visitors operated their own mining operations, followed by their decision to create worker beings by modifying existing hominids to serve as laborers. Over time, some of the Anunnaki supposedly grew attached to their creations, seeing potential in them beyond mere servitude. This faction, led by an entity called Enki, allegedly provided additional genetic upgrades and shared knowledge with early humans. Enki, against the wishes of the council, gave the gift of understanding to his children. One tablet recounted. For this, he was punished, but he did not regret his choice. The parallels to later myths, from the Greek story of Prometheus giving fire to humans to the biblical narrative of the forbidden fruit of knowledge, were striking. In June 2026, as the archaeological and genetic research continued, an entirely new dimension of evidence emerged, one that would transform the Sumerian controversy from an academic debate to a matter of global significance. Dr. Zachary Jenkins was contacted by Dr. Elena Petrova, director of the SETI Institute's Radio Astronomy Division. The SETI, Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, Institute had been monitoring electromagnetic emissions from space for decades, searching for potential signals from alien civilizations. We've detected something unusual coming from the outer solar system, Dr. Petrova explained during their video call. A repeating signal that doesn't match any known natural phenomenon. The pattern caught my attention because it contains mathematical sequences similar to those your colleague Dr. Richards found in the human genome. The signal, first detected by the Allen Telescope Array in California, originated from a region of space consistent with where an object in a highly elliptical 3,600-year orbit, like the Nibiru described in the Sumerian texts, might currently be located. We've confirmed the signal with radio telescopes in China, Australia, and South Africa, Dr. Petrova continued. It's definitely there, and it's definitely artificial. But here's where it gets really interesting. The signal includes encoded information, and when we began decoding it, we found patterns that match elements of Sumerian cuneiform. The implications were staggering. If genuine, this would represent not only the first confirmed detection of an artificial extraterrestrial signal, but evidence that directly connected that signal to ancient Mesopotamian civilization. A joint task force of astronomers, cryptographers, linguists, and experts in Sumerian culture was quickly assembled to analyze the signal. Dr. Jenkins and Dr. Reed brought ENKI into the project, using it to compare the signal's patterns with the entire corpus of translated cuneiform texts. After 2 months of intensive analysis, the task force released its preliminary findings in a paper published simultaneously in Nature Astronomy and Science. The signal contains 3 distinct components, the paper explained. First, a mathematical sequence serving as an attention-getter and primer for decoding. Second, a set of ideographic symbols that correspond to Sumerian cuneiform with approximately 87% similarity. Third, what appears to be technical information including astronomical coordinates and timing data. Most significantly, when the cuneiform-like portion of the signal was processed through ENKI, it produced a coherent message. To the children of Earth who have found our message, your awakening has begun. You have discovered the records we left and have begun to understand your true heritage. When you can respond to this message in kind, using the principles encoded in the final section, we will know you are ready for reunion. The final section of the signal contained what mathematicians and physicists identified as equations related to quantum entanglement, specifically, theoretical principles for instantaneous communication across vast distances. If we're interpreting this correctly, explained Dr. Wei Zhang, a quantum physicist from Beijing University who joined the task force, these equations describe a communication technology far beyond our current capabilities, a method for transmitting information without the light speed limitation. As astronomers continued monitoring the signal, they made another discovery. It was moving. The source was on a trajectory that, if continued, would bring it into the inner solar system within approximately 15 to 20 years. Whatever sending this signal appears to be on its way toward us, Dr. Petrova confirmed during a UN Security Council briefing that had been hastily convened to address the situation. Based on its current velocity and trajectory, it could reach Earth orbit sometime between 2040 and 2045. The public reaction to these revelations was predictably chaotic. Religious leaders sought to reconcile the findings with their theological frameworks. Some embraced the idea that the Anunnaki might have been angels or other divine messengers. Others condemned the entire narrative as a deception. Financial markets fluctuated wildly as investors tried to anticipate how confirmation of extraterrestrial contact might affect various industries. Technology stocks soared, particularly companies involved in space exploration, advanced computing, and genetic research. Governments worldwide began developing contingency plans, forming committees to address the political, military, and social implications of potential reunion with the beings described in the Sumerian texts. Meanwhile, the scientific community remained focused on understanding the signal and accelerating research into the quantum communication technology it described. If humans could develop the capability to respond using the same principles, it might be possible to establish two-way communication before the signal source reached our vicinity. This is the greatest scientific challenge humanity has ever faced, Dr. Jenkins declared in an address to the International Astronomical Union. But it's also the greatest opportunity. Whether or not we accept the Sumerian narrative of our origins, we're being offered knowledge that could transform our understanding of physics and our capabilities as a species. As the world grappled with these revelations, Dr. Rachel Reed made a connection that had eluded researchers until now. She noticed that certain tablets describing Anunnaki technology made repeated references to a substance called Shem or Sham, in Sumerian, typically translated as name or renown, but in context suggesting something more tangible. The Shem powers their sky vessels, one tablet described. It is the stone that is not stone, the metal that is not metal. It draws power from the very fabric of the air and waters. Another stated, the knowledge of making the Shem was their most guarded secret. It brings light from darkness, heat from coldness, and motion from stillness. Dr. Reed consulted with physicists and material scientists, who were struck by how these descriptions resembled theoretical zero-point energy systems or room-temperature superconductors, technologies that modern science was still struggling to develop. If we interpret drawing power from the fabric of air and waters as extracting energy from the quantum vacuum, suggested Dr. Hiroshi Takahashi, who had analyzed the artifacts from the underground chamber, then what these tablets are describing might be a zero-point energy device, essentially tapping into the underlying energy of space-time itself. The crystal cylinders found in the underground chamber suddenly took on new significance. When examined using advanced scanning techniques, they revealed microscopic structures that defied conventional manufacturing capabilities, perfectly aligned molecular lattices with embedded metallic nanofilaments. These aren't just ceremonial objects, Dr. Takahashi concluded after months of analysis. They appear to be components of a larger device, possibly an energy generation or manipulation system of some kind. A breakthrough came in March 2027, when researchers at the Quantum Materials Laboratory in Zurich managed to activate one of the crystal cylinders using controlled electromagnetic pulses. The results were astonishing. The cylinder began emitting a faint blue glow and generating a small but measurable gravitational anomaly. It was subtly altering the gravitational field in its immediate vicinity. "This device is manipulating space-time itself," announced Dr. Elena Kuznetsova, the physicist who led the experiment. "It's creating what we might call a local gravity lens, bending space-time in ways we've only theorized until now." The implications were enormous. If the technology could be understood and replicated at scale, it would revolutionize energy production, space propulsion, and even manufacturing. A working zero-point energy system would solve humanity's energy crisis overnight. Gravitational manipulation would make space travel far more efficient. But more profound than the technological implications was what this discovery suggested about human history and our relationship with the beings described in the Sumerian texts. If these devices are genuine artifacts from ancient Mesopotamia, Dr. Reed pointed out, then either Sumerian civilization possessed technological capabilities far beyond what we've attributed to them, or they received these devices from somewhere or someone else. As researchers continued studying the artifacts and tablets, a cohesive narrative began to emerge, one that challenged our most fundamental assumptions about human civilization and technological development. According to this narrative, reconstructed from thousands of translated tablets spanning millennia, Earth had been visited multiple times by beings from a planet in a highly elliptical orbit around our sun. These beings, referred to as the Anunnaki, initially came seeking resources but eventually established a presence on Earth, genetically modifying existing hominids to create a worker species that would eventually evolve into modern humans. The visitors provided early humans with basic knowledge of agriculture, animal husbandry, writing, mathematics, astronomy, and certain technologies, giving rise to the sudden emergence of Sumerian civilization around 4000 BCE, with its surprisingly advanced understanding of these fields. But as human civilization developed, conflicts arose among the Anunnaki about how much knowledge to share. Some advocated for treating humans as partners and providing advanced technology. Others insisted on maintaining humans as a servant species with limited knowledge. This conflict, combined with a natural disaster, possibly a flood caused by rapid melting of glaciers at the end of the last ice age, led to most of the Anunnaki departing Earth, but not before leaving behind records of their presence and certain technological artifacts for future generations to discover when humanity had advanced sufficiently on its own. "They were testing us," Dr. Jenkins proposed during a symposium at the United Nations in May 2027. "The underground chambers, the encoded information in our DNA, the signal from deep space, these weren't just records or messages. They were stages in a test to determine if humanity would develop the scientific and moral capacity to handle advanced knowledge." This interpretation gained support as more chambers were discovered at locations around the world, each containing tablets and artifacts that provided pieces of a technological puzzle, a puzzle that humanity was only now becoming advanced enough to solve. "It's like a cosmic treasure hunt," observed Dr. Sofia Martinez. "Each discovery leads to the next, each technology builds upon the previous one. And with each step, we're being asked to demonstrate not just our intellectual capacity, but our wisdom in how we apply this knowledge." The final piece came in December 2027, when an expedition to a remote region of Antarctica, guided by coordinates derived from tablets found in the previous chambers, uncovered a structure buried beneath 2 kilometers of ice. Unlike the previous chambers, this facility appeared to be intact and potentially operational. Constructed from an unknown alloy with remarkable insulating properties, it had preserved its internal environment despite being buried for thousands of years. Inside, researchers found not just tablets and artifacts, but a complete technological system, one that matched the theoretical zero-point energy device described in the Sumerian texts. At the center of the main chamber stood a crystalline structure approximately 3 meters tall, surrounded by 7 of the now familiar crystal cylinders arranged in a specific geometric pattern. Initial scans indicated that the system was in a dormant state but potentially functional. After months of careful study and preparation, an international team of scientists attempted to activate it following procedures decoded from accompanying tablets. On July 7, 2028, the system hummed to life. The crystal cylinders began glowing with blue-white light, and the central crystalline structure emitted a low, resonant tone that gradually increased in frequency. Then, something remarkable happened. A field of coherent energy formed within the chamber, creating what appeared to be a stable region of altered space-time. "It's a communication portal," announced Dr. Wei Zhang after analyzing the phenomenon. "According to our instruments, this field creates a quantum bridge, effectively, an Einstein-Rosen bridge or wormhole, but stabilized in ways our physics hadn't predicted was possible. Within this field, a projection appeared three-dimensional and seemingly solid. It took the form of a humanoid figure, taller than an average human, with elongated features and eyes that seemed to reflect an ancient intelligence. Children of Earth." The figure addressed the stunned researchers in perfect English, though its lips didn't move in synchronization with the words. "You have completed the first trial. You have found our messages, deciphered our knowledge, and awakened this beacon. Now we may speak directly." The being identified itself as an interface, not a living entity but a highly advanced AI representation created to interact with humans once they activated the technology. It explained that its creators, the beings described as Anunnaki in Sumerian texts, had indeed visited Earth repeatedly over thousands of years. "My creators came to your world 432,000 of your years ago," the interface explained. "They found a beautiful planet with developing life forms, including early hominids with potential for higher development. They established outposts and research stations, primarily to extract minerals and study the unique biodiversity of Earth." According to the interface, the visitors had indeed intervened in human evolution, accelerating certain genetic pathways already present in early hominids, particularly those related to brain development, language acquisition, and abstract thinking. This intervention wasn't a creation from scratch, but an enhancement of existing potential. "You were always destined to evolve intelligence," the interface clarified. "My creators simply hastened the process." When asked why, the answer was unexpected. "For companionship. Their civilization is ancient, millions of years older than yours. They had achieved technological mastery but faced a crisis of purpose. In your species, with your creativity, adaptability, and unique perspective, they saw potential companions for the cosmic journey ahead." The interface explained that most of the visitors had departed Earth approximately 4,000 years ago, when their home planet's orbit took it to the outer reaches of the solar system. But they left behind these technological caches and encoded information as a test, to see if humans would develop the scientific understanding and ethical maturity to use advanced knowledge responsibly. "The signal you detected is from their return voyage," the interface confirmed. "They approach now to witness what you have become in their absence." When asked about the visitors' intentions upon their return, the interface was measured in its response. "They come to observe, to evaluate, and potentially to invite. If humanity demonstrates readiness, you may be offered fuller participation in the broader community of intelligent life." "And if we're not ready?" asked Dr. Jenkins. "Then they will depart again, leaving you to develop further on your own path," the interface replied. "They will not interfere with your natural development if you are not prepared for the knowledge they could share." The activation of the Antarctic facility and the communication it enabled transformed the global conversation. No longer was the debate about whether the Sumerian translations were accurate or whether humans had been influenced by extraterrestrial visitors in the distant past. Now, humanity faced a more immediate question. How would we prepare for the approaching encounter? In the 5 years following the activation of the Antarctic facility, humanity underwent a profound transformation. The interface became a bridge not just between species but between epochs, allowing modern humans to access knowledge accumulated by a civilization millions of years our senior. But this knowledge came with conditions. The interface would not simply provide technologies. It would only answer questions that humans were conceptually prepared to understand. And it emphasized repeatedly that how we used this knowledge would determine whether further collaboration would be possible. "My creators do not wish to give you capabilities that you might use for self-destruction," the interface explained. "They have observed your wars, your environmental damage, your inequalities. They see great promise in your species, but also concerning patterns. This conditional approach to knowledge sharing prompted unprecedented cooperation among nations. The United Nations established the Global Preparatory Council, tasked with coordinating research, establishing ethical frameworks for applying new technologies, and addressing long-standing humanitarian challenges that might disqualify Earth from deeper engagement with the returning visitors. The technological insights gleaned from the interface led to breakthroughs in energy production, materials science, medicine, and computing. Zero-point energy generators, based on the principles demonstrated by the Antarctic facility, began supplanting fossil fuels and even renewable energy sources, producing clean, unlimited power with minimal environmental impact. Medical researchers developed treatments based on the genetic knowledge encoded in the Sumerian texts, addressing previously incurable diseases and potentially extending human lifespan significantly. Quantum computing advanced rapidly, enabling new forms of artificial intelligence that helped manage these technological transitions. But perhaps more significant than the technological changes were the social and philosophical transformations. The confirmed existence of an ancient, advanced civilization that had influenced human development forced a reconsideration of humanity's place in the cosmos and our responsibilities to one another. Religious institutions struggled to incorporate these revelations into their theological frameworks, with some embracing the visitors as manifestations of divine influence and others rejecting the entire narrative as deception. New spiritual movements emerged, seeking to integrate scientific knowledge with a sense of cosmic purpose. Educational systems worldwide were redesigned to prepare younger generations for a future that might include regular interaction with non-human intelligences. Curriculums expanded to include not just advanced sciences, but also ethical philosophy, cultural adaptation, and the history of human-Anunnaki relations as recorded in ancient texts. As the projected arrival date of the visitors approached, humanity faced a moment of collective self-examination. Had we advanced enough, not just technologically but ethically, to join a broader community of intelligent life? Had we addressed the destructive tendencies that had characterized much of our recent history? This is not merely about showcasing our technological achievements. Dr. Rachel Reed reminded a global audience during the 5th anniversary of the Antarctic facility's activation. It's about demonstrating that we've developed the wisdom to use knowledge responsibly, that we've grown beyond tribalism, short-term thinking, and the impulse to weaponize every new discovery. Dr. Zachary Jenkins, now serving as the Global Preparatory Council's chief scientific liaison, offered a complementary perspective. We've spent centuries looking up at the stars, wondering if we're alone. Now we know we're not, and that knowledge carries both promise and responsibility. The question isn't just whether they'll accept us, but whether we're ready to accept a new understanding of ourselves. On the eve of the anticipated arrival, as advanced telescopes tracked the approaching vessel decelerating as it entered the inner solar system, a final transmission was received through the Antarctic facility. Children of Earth, you have grown much in our absence. We observe your progress with interest, your technological achievements, yes, but more importantly, your efforts to evolve as a species beyond the limitations of your origins. We come not as gods returning to their creation, but as older siblings reuniting with family long separated. The choice of how our relationship proceeds lies as much with you as with us. We await your response. As humanity crafted its reply, the words of the ancient Sumerian tablet discovered at the very beginning of this journey seemed newly relevant. When the sky vessels return, bearing the watchers from beyond, the children of Earth will have become as their ancestors dreamed, not servants, but heirs to the knowledge of stars. In those ancient clay tablets, pressed with wedge-shaped marks over 4,000 years ago, lay not just the story of our past, but a glimpse of our possible future. A future where humanity takes its place in a cosmos more connected, more conscious, and more wondrous than we had ever imagined. In the end, what AI found translating the Sumerian tablets wasn't just lost knowledge or evidence of ancient visitors. It was a mirror reflecting our deepest questions about who we are and what we might become.